The moment I found children's tire swings hanging from my century-old oak trees, I knew someone was going to jail. Either me for what I was about to do, or the entitled HOA president who thought she owned my land. If you want to find out how an HOA Karen's land grab scheme backfired so badly she had to leave town, hit subscribe. Trust me, revenge doesn't get sweeter than this. I remember the exact date, October 15th, 2024. I'd been working from home, buried in spreadsheets, when the sound of children's laughter drifted through my office window. Not unusual for a Tuesday afternoon, except I lived alone on 5 acres of wooded property. At least, I thought I did. Walking out onto my back deck, I spotted 3 kids swinging from professionally installed tire swings, complete with safety harnesses, hanging from my prized oak trees. A concrete pad had been poured beneath them, fresh and clean, couldn't have been more than a week old. 2 women in yoga pants chatted on a bench I definitely hadn't put there, sipping lattes like they were in Central Park. "Excuse me," I called out, trying to keep my voice level. "This is private property." One of the women, let's call her Yoga Mom, looked up with the kind of confused expression you'd expect if someone claimed the sky was green. "No, this is the Pine Valley Community Trail and Playground. It's on the HOA map." I blinked. The what now? "There must be some mistake," I said, walking closer. "I own this land. All of it. 5 acres worth." Yoga Mom rolled her eyes and pulled out her phone. "Look, it's right here on the HOA website. Pine Valley's newest family amenity, nature trail, and children's adventure playground." She turned the screen toward me, and sure enough, there were professional photos of my property, complete with the newly installed playground equipment I was seeing for the first time. The photos had been taken from angles that made it look like part of the adjacent HOA community. My blood pressure spiked when I saw the member testimonials section. So glad the HOA finally developed this unused land into something beautiful for our children. Unused land? I bought this property 6 months ago specifically for its pristine woodland. I'd paid a premium for the privacy it offered, a sanctuary where I could decompress after years of high-stress corporate law work. Now I was standing in what had apparently become Pine Valley HOA's latest amenity, without my knowledge or consent. "I need everyone to leave," I said firmly, lawyer mode engaging. "This is private property, and whoever installed this equipment is going to be liable for trespassing and property damage." The second woman stood up, her face darkening. "I'm calling Pat. This is ridiculous." "Who's Pat?" "Patricia Henderson, the HOA president. She personally oversaw this whole project. We paid increased dues for this amenity." That's when it hit me. They'd been charging people for access to my land. This wasn't just trespassing. This was fraud. I pulled out my phone and started recording, documenting the playground equipment, the poured concrete, the Pine Valley trail signs I was just now noticing attached to my trees. When I got to the bench, I found a small brass plaque, donated by Patricia Henderson, Pine Valley HOA president. Well, wasn't that generous of her? Donating a bench to be installed on someone else's property. The sound of tires on gravel drew my attention to my private access road, the one that was supposed to be gated but mysteriously wasn't anymore. A white Tesla pulled up, and out stepped a woman in a blazer that probably cost more than most people's monthly mortgage. Her heels clicked against the gravel as she approached, radiating the kind of confidence that comes from years of never being told no. "I'm Patricia Henderson," she announced, extending a manicured hand I didn't shake. "I understand there's some confusion about our community playground." "Our community playground?" Oh, this was going to be interesting. I smiled, channeling my inner shark from my courtroom days. "No confusion at all, Ms. Henderson. I'm James Mitchell, the owner of this property, and you've got exactly 24 hours to remove everything you've illegally installed here before I call the police and my lawyers. I wonder how your HOA members will feel when they learn you've been charging them for amenities on stolen land." The color drained from Patricia's face, but her eyes narrowed. She pulled out her phone and walked a few steps away, her voice carrying clearly. Jerry, get me the adverse possession paperwork. It's time to teach someone how things work around here. I almost laughed. Almost. Adverse possession? She had no idea who she was dealing with. This wasn't my first property rights rodeo, and Patricia Henderson was about to learn a very expensive lesson about messing with a former real estate attorney's land. The next morning, I walked into the Pine Valley HOA office armed with a stack of documents and my old courtroom confidence. The reception area looked like it had been decorated by someone who'd watched too many real estate reality shows. All chrome glass and motivational quotes about community. I have proof of purchase, property surveys, and title insurance documents, I said, laying out my paperwork on Patricia's desk. Your turn. Show me documentation of this alleged adverse possession claim. Patricia sat behind her massive desk, perfectly coiffed at 9 a.m., tapping her French manicured nails against a leather portfolio. Mr. Mitchell, you clearly don't understand how things work here in Pine Valley. That land has been used by our community for over a decade. We have witnesses, documentation, even maintenance records. I pulled out my phone and played a video. It was from my home's previous owner, recorded last night during our FaceTime call. I never gave permission for anyone to use that land. His voice crackled through the speaker. That's why I kept it gated and posted. Sold it to Mr. Mitchell exactly as is, untouched. Patricia's eye twitched. Well, he would say that, wouldn't he? To avoid liability. Actually, I smiled. Pulling out another document, he said it because it's true. Here's the sworn affidavit he signed this morning. But let's talk about liability, specifically yours. I've got copies of your HOA newsletters going back 6 months. You've been collecting special assessments for trail maintenance and playground development on land you don't own. That's fraud, Patricia. She stood up abruptly, her chair rolling back into the wall with a thud. How dare you come in here and threaten me? I've run this HOA for 8 years. Do you know how many property disputes I've handled? Created, you mean? I corrected, enjoying watching her composure crack. Because I did some digging. You've got quite a history of expanding HOA territory through creative interpretations of property lines. That hit home. Patricia's face flushed red. Those were legitimate adverse possession claims. Were they? Like the Williams case last year? They sued you personally for trying to claim their vegetable garden as HOA common space. Settled out of court. If I remember correctly, I was showing off now, but I couldn't help myself. Amazing what you can find in public records. She grabbed her phone. I'm calling our attorney. Already spoke with Jerry this morning, I said, enjoying her look of surprise. Turns out we played golf together at law school. He strongly advised against pursuing any adverse possession claim, given that you've been trespassing for less than a year and installing improvements without permission. Patricia slammed her hand on the desk. This is absurd. We spent over $50,000 on that playground equipment, which you had no right to install on my land, I pointed out. But I'm willing to be reasonable. Remove everything within 48 hours. Refund all special assessments to your members, and I won't pursue legal action. The board will never approve refunds, she scoffed. I pulled out my final document. Interesting you should mention the board. I have here a copy of your HOA bylaws. Article 7. Section 3 specifically prohibits the board president from authorizing expenditures over $10,000 without a full board vote and community notice period. Did you get that approval, Patricia? The silence was deafening. I didn't think so. I continued. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to call an emergency board meeting for tonight. I'll be there with my documentation. You can either handle this professionally, or I can file complaints with both the police and the state HOA oversight board tomorrow morning. Patricia's mask of confidence cracked completely. You don't understand my reputation. Is exactly what you should have thought about before putting playground equipment on someone else's property and charging your members for it. I finished. 7 p.m. tonight, Patricia. Don't be late. As I walked out of her office, I heard the distinct sound of something being thrown against the wall. I smiled, thinking about the security camera footage from my property that I hadn't shown her yet. The video of her personally directing the playground installation crew at midnight 3 weeks ago. Sometimes the best revenge is letting someone dig their own grave. Patricia had been working on hers for weeks, and tonight, she'd finally have to lie in it. I just hoped she wouldn't do anything desperate before the meeting. But then again, desperate people tend to make mistakes, and I was counting on Patricia to make a few more before this was over. The Pine Valley HOA meeting room was packed like a sold-out theater. Seems word had gotten around. As I walked in, the whisper started. Patricia sat at the center of the board table, her earlier shaken confidence replaced with something darker. She had the look of a cornered animal, and those are always the most dangerous. "Before we begin," Patricia announced, her voice carrying across the room, "I'd like to address the ridiculous accusations made by Mr. Mitchell. We have evidence that the land in question has been part of our community space for years." That's when she played her trump card, or what she thought was one. The projector flickered to life, showing photographs of families using trails on what appeared to be my property, dated over several years. "As you can see," she continued, a smug smile forming, "we have documented community use dating back to 2019. According to adverse possession laws, those photos aren't my property," I interrupted, standing up. "They're from the actual public park 2 miles north. Same oak trees, different location. Would you like me to prove it?" Patricia's smile faltered. "That's absurd. I took these photos myself." I pulled out my laptop and connected it to the second projector. Interesting you should say that, because the metadata on these images shows they were taken at Riverside Park. Plus, here's the same playground equipment in these photos being installed on my property 3 weeks ago. The security footage played in crystal clear 4K. Patricia directing contractors at midnight, motion sensor lights illuminating the scene like a crime drama. The room erupted in gasps and murmurs. Furthermore, I continued over the growing chaos. Here are the invoices for the playground equipment and installation, charged to the HOA account without board approval, totaling $53,847. Board member Sarah Chin stood up, her face flushed with anger. "Patricia, you told us that land was donated to the HOA. We never voted on this expenditure. I was going to bring it up for retroactive approval," Patricia stammered. "Once the adverse possession claim was secured." "There is no adverse possession claim," another board member, Tom Wilson, exploded. "We're going to be legally liable for this mess." Patricia's composure cracked completely. She grabbed her designer bag and headed for the door. "This meeting is adjourned." "Actually," Tom said, "according to bylaws, the vice president can continue the meeting if the president is compromised." Sarah Chun took control, like a captain steering through a storm. "Mr. Mitchell, what are your demands?" "Remove the equipment, refund the special assessments, and issue a public apology," I stated. "Do that, and I won't pursue legal action against the HOA. "And Patricia?" Sarah asked. "That's up to the board. But I will be filing a police report about the trespassing and unauthorized construction." Patricia spun around at the door. "You can't prove I was behind the construction. Those videos could be doctored." I smiled. "You're right. That's why I also have signed statements from the contractors. Copies of the checks you wrote from your personal account before reimbursing yourself from HOA funds, and the original quotes addressed to you personally. Would you like me to continue?" The room fell silent. Patricia's face went through 50 shades of red before settling on a dangerous purple. She reached into her bag and pulled out her phone. "Fine. You want to play hardball? I'm calling the police. Let them sort this out." Tom laughed. "On what charges?" "He's harassing our community, threatening our children's playground." Think of the children. As if on cue, 2 police officers walked in. Patricia's face lit up with triumph until one of them spoke. "Ms. Henderson, we received your call about a property dispute. We've also received Mr. Mitchell's evidence of trespassing and fraudulent use of HOA funds. We'll need you to come down to the station to answer some questions. This is ridiculous. I'm the victim here, Patricia screeched, backing away. I've run this community for 8 years. You can't just... Ma'am, the officer interrupted. Please don't make this more difficult than it needs to be. As the officers escorted a protesting Patricia out, Sarah Chun turned to address the stunned room. I moved to immediately remove all unauthorized equipment from Mr. Mitchell's property and audit all expenditures authorized by Patricia Henderson in the last year. Do I have a second? Every board member's hand shot up. I almost felt sorry for Patricia. Almost. But as I watched her being guided into a police car through the window, I remembered something my old law professor used to say. The law doesn't care about your intentions. It cares about your actions. And Patricia's actions were finally catching up with her. 3 months after what locals now call the Great Pine Valley Playground scandal, I sat in my home office, watching through the window as construction crews put the finishing touches on the new community park. This time, on land actually owned by the HOA. The audit of Patricia's tenure as board president had uncovered a pattern of deception that left the entire community reeling. She'd been running a complex scheme of unauthorized projects, phantom maintenance contracts, and inflated special assessments for years. The playground on my property wasn't her first land grab, just her last. My doorbell rang. Sarah Chun, the new HOA president, stood on my porch with a thick manila envelope. The final settlement papers, she said, stepping into my living room. Patricia pled guilty to fraudulent use of HOA funds. She's paying restitution and doing community service. Apparently, the judge has a particular distaste for HOA fraud. I couldn't help but smile. How's she handling the mandatory financial management classes? About as well as you'd expect, Sarah chuckled. But that's not why I'm here. The board has a proposition for you. She spread out architectural plans on my coffee table. We're establishing a conservation easement between your property and the new park. It would create a legal buffer zone, protecting both your privacy and our development. Plus, it would qualify you for a significant tax break. I studied the plans. They'd done their homework this time. Everything properly surveyed, permitted, and documented. There's more, Sarah continued. The community wants to hire you as our legal consultant. After what happened with Patricia, we realized we need someone who actually understands property law and HOA regulations. Your handling of the situation impressed a lot of people. I raised an eyebrow. Even the yoga moms? Especially them. They're your biggest supporters now, ever since you helped relocate the playground to a better location. The new park has twice the equipment and proper safety surfacing. The irony wasn't lost on me. Patricia's attempt to steal my land had inadvertently led to the community getting a properly planned, fully equipped park. Sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's watching something better emerge from the chaos. My phone buzzed. A news alert from the local paper. Former HOA president ordered to write public apology. Letter goes viral. I pulled up the article and couldn't suppress a laugh. Patricia's court-mandated apology had been shared thousands of times on social media, spawning memes and cautionary tales about HOA overreach. Did you see her face when the judge ordered her to personally replant every tree damaged during the playground installation? Sarah asked, grinning. I heard she's selling her house, I replied. Moving to a non-HOA neighborhood, can't blame her. Though I suspect she'll find that karma doesn't care about zoning laws. As Sarah left with the signed easement agreements, I walked out to my back deck. The autumn air was crisp and leaves crunched under my feet. Where Patricia's illegal playground had stood, native wildflowers now bloomed. My small act of restoration after the construction damage. A movement caught my eye. A young deer emerged from the woods, followed by 2 fawns. They'd been absent during the playground chaos, but now they were back, reclaiming their territory just as I had reclaimed mine. My phone buzzed again. A message from Tom Wilson, the HOA vice president. You won't believe this. 3 other HOAs in the county just contacted us. They're dealing with similar situations. Would you be interested in consulting? I smiled, remembering Patricia's words from our first confrontation. You don't understand how things work here. She'd been right about one thing. I hadn't understood then, but I did now. And maybe, just maybe, I could help make sure things work better in the future. The next morning, I installed a new sign at the edge of my property. Not a no trespassing warning or a legal notice, but something simpler, private wildlife sanctuary, where nature and property rights are both protected. As I stepped back to admire it, I noticed one of the yoga moms walking past with her kids. She waved, then pointed to the sign. Much better than a playground, she called out. My kids have started a bird-watching club. I waved back, thinking about how differently things could have turned out if Patricia had just asked instead of taking. Sometimes the best way to build a community isn't by grabbing what isn't yours. It's by respecting boundaries and working together to create something new. The dear family continued their morning grazing, undisturbed. In the distance, I could hear children laughing at the new park, exactly where they should be. All was right with the world in Pine Valley, at least until the next HOA Karen came along. But that's another story.